I've been getting asked a lot, what is it like to live in Tampa in 2025? Well, if you clicked on today's video, you're about to find everything out. Let's go. What is going on, YouTube? If you are new to the channel, welcome, and if you are returning, welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what it's like to live in Tampa Bay in 2025, and that's going to include the geography of Tampa Bay, the roadways, and how that all integrates into our lifestyle and quality of life here in Florida. Before we get started, I want to preface the video by saying I am a licensed agent in the state of Florida, so if you have real estate goals, questions, or dreams of moving here, especially the Tampa Bay area, I would be honored to earn your real estate business and help you make your transition here as smooth as possible. So I'm going to drop my contact information on screen so you can get in touch, and please do not hesitate to reach out to me. First, I think it's really important to break down the geography of Tampa Bay and what all is included in the region of Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay, I personally feel, includes 3 major counties. You could sneak a 4th one in there, but those main 3 are going to be Hillsborough County, where Tampa resides. Then you have Pinellas County to the west, where St. Pete and Clearwater are. And then to the south, you have Manatee County, which is primarily Bradenton. The 4th one you could also consider is Pasco County, which sits at the north right above Pinellas and Hillsborough. In the past, in some of my content, some of my viewers have gotten upset that I've compared Tampa Bay to regions like New York City and Miami and Chicago. However, when you look at a map, it's very similar to New York's tri-state area and Miami and Miami's beaches relationship as well. Tampa Bay is centralized around downtown Tampa, which sits at the northeast corner of the bay. And when I say the bay, if you know what a bay is, it is a small body of water surrounded partially by land that is connected to a larger body of water. And in this instance, that is the Gulf of Mexico or Gulf of America. Sticking out into the bay, you have these 2 peninsulas. The furthest one to the west is going to be Pinellas County, like I said earlier, where Clearwater and St. Pete reside. And then this smaller one in the middle of the bay is Tampa. And the majority of that small peninsula there is going to be South Tampa, and at the very southern tip is MacDill Air Force Base. Now, when you're looking at Tampa, if you start at the peninsula and go upwards towards downtown, it almost goes north in like a fan shape and fans out and fully encompasses the Tampa International Airport. And then there's an area west of there called Town and Country, and it goes as far north as about Wesley Chapel, New Tampa area, and then as far east as I'd say Brandon, and that's probably about where the cutoff is for incorporated Tampa city limits. The reason I feel I'm able to compare the Tampa Bay region with some of those other big cities that I named is because of the sheer size. When you're looking at major metro areas like New York and Chicago and Miami, Tampa Bay is bigger than all 3 of those places in terms of square mileage. Just Hillsborough County alone is 1,200 square feet. Pinellas County is another 280, and then Manatee County is almost 750 square feet. You're looking at almost, or square miles, sorry. You're looking at almost 2,300 square miles across the 3 counties. And that's not even including Pasco, which is almost another 900. Now, when you're taking Tampa Bay region as a whole, that's what makes it so comparable to these other places. And then the way they've designed it is so that all of the counties in Tampa Bay are easily accessible. So if you live in St. Pete, it's not too much of a hassle to drive over to Tampa and have a night out, and vice versa. Now, that's where I'll get into the major roadways and bridges. So, like I said, Tampa Bay is centralized around downtown Tampa. So if you start there, you have 3 major roadways that expand from there. We'll start with I-275. I-275 is a diagonal that runs through Tampa and goes north and south. And if you head south, it'll take you across the bridge into St. Petersburg. Now that highway continues all the way south through St. Pete and will take you over another bridge called the Skyway that will take you into Bradenton or Manatee County, and then will eventually break off and head back north and turn into I-75, which will take you back up into Tampa. Now, starting back in downtown Tampa again, we have a newer highway that, again, diagonally cuts through the city and heading south. This is the Selman Expressway, which will eventually turn into the Gandy Bridge, which is the southernmost bridge that connects Tampa and St. Petersburg. Now, if you are going the opposite way, 275 will eventually break off and go north and continue as 275, and the eastern route will turn into the notorious I-4, which will take you towards Orlando. And the last bridge worth mentioning is going to be the Courtney Campbell Causeway, which will connect Tampa and Clearwater and is a straight shot right across the bay to connect the two cities. Now, if we move across the bridge into Pinellas County, again, that westernmost peninsula, you have another major roadway that's going to connect St. Pete and Clearwater, and that's going to be US Highway 19, and it's notorious for its stoplights. For whatever reason, a highway has stoplights. I'll never understand, but it's more when you get to that northern bit outside of Clearwater where some of those suburban cities of Pasco County start to trickle in. So within this one circuit of highways, you can literally get to Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete, and Bradenton, and of course all of those beach cities that are on the eastern coast of the Tampa Bay, all in one trip. I'd say if you just spent one day to drive the entirety of Tampa Bay, and I've done it before, it would probably take you about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on a bad day of traffic, depending on what time you're driving. Now, some points of interest to take note of when you're looking at Tampa on a map. Of course, downtown Tampa, we spoke about before. Then you're going to have Tampa International Airport, which sits right off that 275 highway. Again, at the very southern of the Hillsborough Peninsula, you have MacDill Air Force Base. Then you're going to go across the bridge, again, off the 275 bridge, you're going to have St. Pete Clearwater International Airport. And then, of course, to the north, Clearwater, and to the south, St. Petersburg. I know you're asking, why is all of this important? Well, I say this because it's really important to understand the geography and the major roadways, because once you understand that, you start to realize, okay, Tampa is quite a big place, but when you compare it to some of the other larger metro areas in the country, it's very accessible to get to all parts of the bay without too much hassle. And that brings me to my next point, which is the demographics and congestion. Though Tampa Bay is much larger or very comparable in size to other major metro areas, the density is just not there, which leaves a bunch of room for growth and development in both the residential and commercial space. Now, of course, a lot of us that live here would probably say the opposite, that it's too congested, the roads are too busy, but it's simply because we don't have the infrastructure yet to support the influx of people who moved here in the post-pandemic years. However, the most beautiful part of all of this is the lifestyle it creates. Like I said earlier, if you live in St. Pete like I do, it's no problem for me to drive across one of those bridges and get into Tampa, spend a full day doing what I need to do in Tampa, and I can head back to St. Pete, wherever I live, and be perfectly fine. You don't have to jump through tons of hoops to get from point A to B to C. You don't have to waste so much time, behind the wheel. You can actually get to where you need to be in a decent time, so as long as you plan ahead and make sure you're not on the road during the busiest hours. This makes almost every kind of lifestyle accessible. If you're into water sports but can't necessarily afford the price tag that St. Pete and Clearwater have set, you can go live in the suburbs in Tampa. Yes, your commute might extend from 20 minutes to an hour. However, an hour is still very accessible for someone who wants to take part in those things. Go to the beach, take their boat out to the water, go fishing. Everything's at your fingertips. If you are family oriented and you want to live in the suburbs like Brandon, Riverview, Wesley Chapel, Carrollwood, Pinellas Park, all of those suburbs outside Tampa and St. Pete, you can very easily do so. And again, still have access to all these amenities and be within decent proximity to the airports and both downtowns should you want to travel. And then, of course, reiterating the growth and development. Back when the '08 crash happened, Florida seemed almost abandoned. And while other parts of the country were going through massive redevelopments and massive um, waves of people investing money into those cities, Tampa Bay didn't really see that. And it wasn't until the pandemic that that started happening. And now that people have started pouring money into this region, have started businesses here, a lot of big companies have, made their headquarters in the Tampa Bay area, across St. Pete and Tampa. We're seeing a different city than what people may have been used to for the past 10 to 15 years. And the growth is nonstop. Like, since I moved here in 2020, I'm seeing commercial and residential developments pop up everywhere. Condos, apartment complexes, brand new homes, luxury homes at that. I'm talking a million plus in areas like Bayshore and West Shore District and the waterfront communities like Venetian Isles and Snell Isle in St. Pete. With that being said, we're going to hone in on Tampa for a second. So again, very southern tip of the peninsula, you have MacDill Air Force Base. Now, if you move west to that coast of the peninsula, you have one street that's going to run pretty much from the bottom up to Tampa International Airport, and that is West Shore Boulevard. Within that is the West Shore District, one of the most sought after areas within Tampa, and probably one of the heftiest price tags. On the opposite coast, you have Bayshore Beautiful. I'm sure you've heard of Bayshore Beautiful before, but Bayshore Boulevard pretty much runs from downtown Tampa all the way to that southern tip of the peninsula, down to MacDill Air Force Base to a park called Ballast Point, a phenomenal place to see the sunrises. I believe it is a 4-mile sidewalk, the longest sidewalk in the city, and just a great place to really capture the essence of Tampa. Remember the Gandy Bridge I mentioned earlier? Well, Gandy Boulevard is going to run all the way across that peninsula, and there's this region below there called South of Gandy, where the price tag is actually relatively affordable compared to other parts of the city, especially in South Tampa. Now, South Tampa is going to encompass the area, I'd say everything below Kennedy Boulevard would be what I consider South Tampa. So that's going to include areas like Hyde Park, of course, Bayshore, and then the West Shore District as well. Now, north of Kennedy Boulevard, south of Hillsborough Avenue, we have what I would call West Tampa. It's still east of the airport, but it's west of the I-275 highway, and it's one of the most popular areas, and several neighborhoods are going through gentrification. Tons of investors putting out amazing residential products with some of the flips and new developments they're doing. And then you have downtown, and moving a little further northeast, east of 275, you have East Tampa, and within East Tampa, you have the Ybor Historic District, one of the most renowned areas within the city. I'm sure you may have heard of before. Now, that's essentially Tampa at its core. Moving outside of those areas I just mentioned is where you start getting into the suburbs. Carrollwood, Northdale, Lutz, Land O'Lakes, Wesley Chapel, Brandon, Riverview, Gibsonton. The list goes on. Apollo Beach, Ruskin. Of course, the further out you move, the lesser the price point is. However, your commutes get higher. You're in a less dense, sometimes, area than you might like, but that might be your thing. So now let's move west over to Pinellas County again, and we'll break down St. Pete a little bit. St. Pete is pretty much split by two roads. You have Central Avenue that runs east and west, pretty much across the entire peninsula, and then you have 4th Street, which runs north and south. That's pretty much going to split the city right in half. So it's almost like a coordinate plane, and St. Pete is cut into fours. Now, everything north of Central Ave is considered North St. Pete, or at least I would consider that. There are some very well-renowned neighborhoods within this area, including Old Historic Northeast, Historic Kenwood, Historic Uptown, um, North Kenwood. There's definitely a couple I'm forgetting, but you get the point. The price tag is rather high. You're really close to downtown. A couple of these are walkable, and then those on the water would be Venetian and Snell Isle that I mentioned before, where you have your $1 million plus homes. Now, south of St. Pete, if you've heard anything about South St. Pete, it probably comes with a stigma or a negative connotation. Well, that's because those were the red line areas back in the civil rights days, and the government kind of abandoned it, if you would. It is a minority community, or several of those are minority communities down there. But with that comes a lot of culture and really great food and vibrance that you just don't get in other parts of St. Petersburg. To the same point, tons of investors and developers are putting out amazing residential products, brand new home flips, brand new homes that are being built from the ground up. And the gentrification is very real, and it's only a matter of time before those underdeveloped areas, get brought to the surface and are on par with some of the more renowned neighborhoods. Now, if you take Central Ave and go all the way west, you're going to go to the beaches. Now, the beaches are endless, it seems. If you start at Clearwater Beach and work your way south, you're going to run into, let's see, Indian Rocks Beach, Reddington Beach, Treasure Island, Madeira Beach, St. Pete Beach, Upham Beach. I'm forgetting one. Paso Grill is pretty much where it ends, but it's Gulf Boulevard will take you all the way down that strip of beaches, very similar to Ocean Drive in Miami Beach. Now, I don't want to bore you guys too long with all the geography talk, but I had been getting a lot of questions about it, so I feel like I had to put out a video for you guys. If you made it this far and you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, please go down, like, comment, hit that subscribe button, because it genuinely helps me create more content like this for you guys. And before I head out, I want to let you know again that I am a licensed agent in the state of Florida. So if you have real estate goals, questions, or dreams of moving here, especially the Tampa Bay area, I would be honored to earn your business and help you make your transition as smooth as possible. So I'll drop my contact information on screen one more time so you can get in touch. And I do have 2 free relocation guides, one for Tampa and one for St. Pete. So if you want access to those, I'm going to drop a link in the description. Feel free to grab it, download it, read through it, find out what it is about St. Pete and Tampa Bay that we all love here. Without further ado, I'm going to head out. See you guys later. Peace.